The heavy injury that hit Joe Montana in 1991 changed everything for the NFL legend. Before that day, he was the king of football, the coolest player in the game with 4 Super Bowl rings. But after his elbow gave out, Montana's story took a dark turn. He went from being the face of the San Francisco 49ers to feeling pushed aside and forgotten. How did one of football's greatest icons end up with such bitterness toward the team that made him famous? Joe Montana's rise to the top reads like a perfect sports story. Picked in the 3rd round of the 1979 draft, Montana became the star of the 1980s NFL. Fans called him Joe Cool because he never seemed nervous, even when games got tough. He led the 49ers to 4 Super Bowl wins and was named Super Bowl MVP 3 times. His calm way of playing made him special. Montana was the master of Bill Walsh's West Coast offense, a system based on timing and short passes. Moments like the catch in the 1981 NFC Championship game against Dallas and his game-winning 92-yard drive in Super Bowl 23 against Cincinnati made him a legend. By 1990, Montana wasn't just the face of the 49ers, he was the face of the whole league. But it all changed during the 1991 preseason when Montana suffered a torn tendon in his right elbow. The injury hit the most important spot for a quarterback, the medial epicondyle joint that is key for throwing. This was no small problem. It was Montana's 7th surgery as a pro player, and doctors called it the most serious since a back operation in 1986 that almost ended his career. At first, doctors thought Montana would miss just the 1991 season, but his recovery turned into a nightmare. The elbow tendon injury, plus problems from earlier elbow issues, led to a long and painful rehab. Reports show Montana needed at least 2 more surgeries to clean the elbow and deal with scar tissue. Each time his return date got pushed back, this long period of uncertainty changed everything. Montana missed the entire 1991 season and played only in the final game of the 1992 regular season. While he was gone, his backup Steve Young got his big chance, and he didn't waste it. Young was no normal backup. The 49ers had traded for him in 1987, partly because they worried about Montana's health after his back surgery. Young was a former USFL star who had already shown flashes of talent in limited action behind Montana. Even with his own knee problems in 1991, Young played in 11 games and led the NFL with a 101.8 passer rating. He threw for 2,517 yards, 17 touchdowns, and just 8 interceptions. He also added 415 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns with his legs. The next season was even better. With Montana still hurt, Young delivered an MVP season in 1992. He started all 16 games, led the league with 25 touchdown passes against just 7 interceptions, and had a 107.0 passer rating. He also ran for 537 yards and 4 more scores. The 49ers finished with a league-best 14-2 record. Young's style was different from Montana's. While both played in the West Coast offense, Young brought exciting running skills that Montana, especially after so many injuries, couldn't match. The team began to change around Young's talents. This made the idea of going back to Montana much harder. Even if he did get healthy, the coaching staff found themselves in a tough spot. Bill Walsh, who had left as head coach but still had influence, had brought in Young partly as a future replacement for Montana. George Seifert, who took over as coach in 1989, had to manage the mess. At first, in February 1993, Seifert named Young, the reigning MVP, as the starter for the next season. This made sense given Young's success and Montana's long absence. But things quickly got confusing. Reports came out that the 49ers might trade Young to keep Montana. Then team owner Eddie DeBartolo Jr. stepped in and offered Montana the designated starter role for the upcoming training camp. Seifert publicly backed this total flip-flop from his earlier decision. Team president Carmen Policy later explained that Seifert changed his mind partly because he thought an open competition between the 2 stars would create a circus atmosphere. But all this back and forth just made things worse. It created confusion and broke trust. In the locker room, players were caught in the middle. Jerry Rice, the legendary receiver who had success with both quarterbacks, said Montana should have been given the chance to compete for his old job. He didn't think a player should lose his starting spot just because of an injury. Hall of Fame defender Ronnie Lott tried to keep peace. While he admitted it was easy to side with Montana at first, he later made a powerful show of support for Young during a tense practice. According to Young, Lott stepped in when a teammate criticized him, saying, "Steve, I have your back, and so does everyone else on this team." This helped bring the team together behind Young. Many fans stayed loyal to Montana, wanting Joe Cool back under center. Others, especially younger fans, were excited by Young's running skills and were ready for a new era. This split among fans probably matched how teammates felt, putting them in the tough spot of choosing sides between two great leaders. By spring 1993, things hit a breaking point. Montana asked for a trade and even tried to get out of his contract. The Chiefs and Cardinals both showed interest. Montana worked out for both teams. The Cardinals offered their first-round pick, and the 49ers accepted, waiting only for Montana to agree. But Montana chose the Chiefs, accepting a smaller $10 million contract instead of $15 million from Arizona. He wanted to work with offensive coordinator Paul Hackett, who had been his coach in San Francisco years earlier. The final trade sent Montana, defensive back David Whitmore, and a third-round pick to Kansas City. The 49ers got the Chiefs' first-round pick, which they eventually used on defensive tackle Dana Stubblefield, who became a key player for them. Montana's move to Kansas City worked out well for both sides. He led the Chiefs to the AFC Championship game in his first season, their best playoff run in over 20 years. He made the Pro Bowl that year and brought excitement to Kansas City. The Chiefs even changed their offense to fit Montana's style. The 49ers did fine too. Young finally had the team to himself and led them to a Super Bowl win the next year. Young got his Super Bowl MVP award, stepping out of Montana's shadow at last. But the way it all happened left deep wounds for Montana. Years later, he still feels hurt about how it ended. "I struggle to try to understand how the whole process took place with me leaving San Francisco," he said in a 2023 interview. "I should have never had to leave. The worst part for him was not getting a chance to compete for his old job. Why wasn't I allowed to compete for the job?" he asked. "I just had one of my best years I'd ever had. How do I not get an opportunity? That's the hardest part." Montana also felt pushed aside during his rehab in 1991. "Why am I not allowed in the facility? What did I do to not be allowed in the facility?" he asked. "They wouldn't even let me dress." His frustration shows in how he talked about Young. Montana once bluntly said, "I didn't help Steve. My job was to make sure this thief stay right where he was, behind me." The tension was so strong that Montana's young daughter reportedly once asked if Young was the guy we hate. Montana firmly believed he could have won more championships had he stayed with the 49ers. He once said, "You guys won another Super Bowl, but you probably would have 2 or 3 more if I'd stuck around." What hurts most in Montana's comments is the feeling that he lost control of his own story. For a man who built his legacy on staying cool under pressure and controlling games in the final minutes, not being able to write his own ending with the franchise he defined seems to be a wound that never fully healed. Despite these bitter feelings, Joe Montana's place in football history remains secure. His success in Kansas City proved he still had something left. He brought the Chiefs closer to a Super Bowl than they had been in decades. His final chapter added to his legacy of toughness and winning. Montana's story shows how even the greatest careers can have painful endings. While the 49ers moved forward and won another title with Young, Montana's feelings about his exit remind us that behind the glory of sports are real people who care deeply about how their stories end. The man who taught us to never give up, who lived by the motto "never die easy," wanted just one more chance to prove himself on the field he once ruled. If this story made you see Joe Montana in a different light, tell us in the comments and hit that subscribe button for more untold sports stories.